This is a Quiet Loud Studios production, the podcast network where reflection meets amplification.
Hello, Athlete Mindset community. This is Lisa Bonta Sumii, the host of Athlete Mindset. Before we dive into this episode, I want to invite you to support the mission and purpose of our show. For $10 a month, you can help to make sure these conversations get to as many athletes, teams, coaches, and sport mental health environments as possible. As a subscriber, you will receive exclusive content and updates on current topics in athlete mental health, and you'll be directly contributing to the betterment of mental health for all athletes. Join the cause. Subscribe at sportse.io/athlete and make a difference today. Again, that's sportse.io/athlete. With your support and amplification, we can ensure more voices are heard and more individuals and communities are positively impacted. How's it going, Athlete Mindset podcast community? I'm so excited today, as I always am, but especially to have Marcus Smith II here with us today. I'm going to do a brief intro, and then he and I are going to dive right into it. But say what's up to the people first.
What's up? How y'all doing, man? Really, I thank you for having me. This is a great deal, and obviously I love to keep the message going, especially when we're talking about athlete mindset, but also through mental health. I think it's very important. So thank you for having me.
No, thank you. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Hearing it from you and all that you are and all the who you are, I think is really going to be impactful. So those of you who don't know, Marcus Smith is a former NFL first-round draft pick and has transitioned into a prominent mental health advocate, life coach, TV correspondent, and entrepreneur. As the CEO of the Circle of M Incorporated and global ambassador for All Points North, he leverages his expertise to create important programs addressing mental health and addiction care. He has appeared on CNN as a subject matter expert on athletes and mental health, sharing his insights with a national audience. And like you said, those are amazing platforms to keep, like you said, the message going, keep the conversation going, and just thank you for all that you're doing in the space.
No problem. It's better when we are actually do it together. So I love being on platforms like this because now that gives me the opportunity to speak to the people that you speak to on a daily basis.
Yes, thank you so much for that and for valuing it. Let's just start at the very crux of it. How do you, Marcus Smith, with all your lived and professional experience, how do you define mental health? How do you define it? Like if somebody's like to come up to you like, hey, I saw you on this, I saw you on that, you're speaking on this, you got a podcast. How would you break that down for people?
Well, the first thing that I would say is mental health doesn't have a look. If somebody is dealing with a mental health issue, there's not a certain thing or a certain look that it has. The person with the most joy could be the one suffering the most. And so you have to understand and how to meet people where they are and ask the right questions. Sometimes people just want you to ask how they're doing or what their day was like, right? And I've noticed that most people who are the ones who are constantly pouring into others, their cups are never being filled. And so there's an emptiness that those people always feel. So I would say that first that mental health doesn't have a look and it doesn't have a name. And so us understanding that it doesn't have that, there's no one perfect person or because everybody's different.
Right.
I think that allows us to understand that the way that we should go about it is meeting people where they are and also going at it in a non-judgmental way. So that's what I would say. That's the first thing that I think about in trying to explain mental health to someone because mental health if you look at it, in our community in the beginning, it's like, oh no, this is terrible. This is something that is not. I don't want to go to therapy, or I don't want to go see a psychiatrist because that means I'm gonna be crazy. So that's the first thing that I think about when you talk about mental health.
For sure. No, that's so huge. It doesn't have a look. No, you saw my face and you saw me. They can't see me, but like that is so important. So important. And yeah, in different communities, and we're going to jump right into that right now, there's been a long history of stigma and misuse of power in the medical community. And so you being, a Black man, in your experience, what are some of the reasons why it's hard for boys and men to talk about mental health, especially Black boys and men? Why do you think that's hard from a historical standpoint or even current up to now? Yeah, whatever you have to say on it.
Well, just being an experience, being a Black man, being raised by a Black father who had to work twice as hard to get where he did in life, and he did
Mm,
so much
mhm,
for us. But his stance and how his mom taught him was more so they're not going to care about your feelings. They're not going to care about what you're dealing
mhm,
with. They're not going to care about some of these things that you're going through. So you just have to shut up and do your job so you can get ahead. And I think because of that, that is passed down to us,
mhm,
whether we like it or not. So I've seen my dad not talk about his feelings. I've seen my dad tell me that I'm disrespecting him if I talk about what I was feeling in that moment. And so we take that to adulthood, whether or not we believe it or not, we take that with us. It just carries along with us. And then now we're passing that down to our seed. And so that's one of the reasons why, especially as Black men, I think we don't speak because it's in our hearts that no one is going to care. No one has shown us that they actually care, especially if you're in a tough environment, tough situation. You're trying to provide and get food on the table, things of
yep,
that nature. You feel like, well, there's no hope there. So, what is it going to really mean for me to open up to someone? Is that really going to help what I am dealing with? That's what the thought process is. And so that's kind of what happened to me until I got to the point where there was no turning back. I had no choice but to go seek help. And
mhm,
through help, that's when I realized that, man, we've been doing everything backwards.
mm,
We've been missing out on so much that can help the Black man grow just in general. So I got to speak to Congress about this because the suicide rate went up in, I want to say in 2000, it was from 2020 all the way to 2024. And the
mhm,
suicide rate had been going up each and every year. And so my thing was with that was it has to start when we're young. We have to get to the youth like right now and give them a safe space wherever that safe space is. We have to give them a safe space to be able to speak and talk because they're ending their lives before they even start. And that was one of the toughest things for me to do is to go to Congress and talk to them about that because I see them as me. And I'm like,
mm.
man, I didn't have that growing up. So I can imagine what they don't have. So it takes voices like ours to continue to talk about that and allow them to be heard. Because the more you speak, the more you free yourself.
What transformation. I wish I was a fly on the wall through your sort of moving through all that because starting with if I talk about emotions, I'm disrespecting my father. That's the last thing we want to do. And then now to
Yeah.
like you got to express your emotions to be free. Whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. That's huge. You spoke with Congress 2020 to 24. That makes sense, right? Pandemic, sheltering in place for a lot of us. What that meant, isolation, not being able to socialize, not being able to be out, like that's a pillar of being healthy, much less mentally or physically, to be healthy, to be out there and be with your people and socialize and like be out there, and we couldn't do that. And the fear. So it makes sense that a lot of us struggled there and that the suicide rate went up, and makes a lot of sense. I wanna get into the nitty-gritty of it a little bit
Mhm.
because of your passion and knowledge of mental health. You obviously have your own story and your own journey. Would you mind, I'm humbly asking, if you could share a little bit about your mental health journey and what has brought you to today and us being together?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I thank you for asking me because that's an opportunity for me to continue to free myself, right?
Mm,
That's what this is all about. You have to be an example, right, for others. So you have to constantly continue to tell your story, but also it's going to help someone else. And that's what we're here for. So, but my journey kind of started when I was 8. My first anxiety attack was when I was 8 years old.
mm,
My parents didn't really understand, didn't really have the knowledge to understand what it actually was. And I'm here to tell you that just from experience, if you don't address those things that are plaguing you, those things will travel with you from the youth to when you are an adult. And
mhm,
so there were times where in high school, anxiety, depression was there. Didn't really realize or understand the magnitude of it, but it was there. It traveled with me to college, the same thing. And I always explain it like this: if you are a kid, a lot of times you can get out of bed, you can run, jump, you don't really have to stretch or anything. You could just go for it. You don't have to worry about pulling a hamstring or anything like that.
mhm,
But as you get older, you have to take care of your body. You have to stretch. You can't do some of those same things you did as a kid.
mhm,
And that's how I describe mental health with me. I was able to push through with some of those things that were plaguing me because I had football. I had all these band aids, if you will, to get away from the real stressors. But once I got drafted into the NFL, now you're tacking on all the things that I didn't address. Now it's added on with the NFL. It's added on being a first round draft pick. It's added on with being a man of the house, family, fans, coaches, and on top of not playing well. And it was honestly a lot for me to handle, and it was hard. And
mm,
so I was trying to figure out an escape each and every year that I was playing, trying to figure out a way to get out of my mind, try to get out of myself, right? And so I was looking at football as a way to be able to get away from that, but now it was festering into my football career.
mhm,
Because before, football was the safe haven, but now it's been bombarded with so many other things that I have no control over. And so I get to Seattle, career is going on an up and up year. I signed a $2.7 million deal with them, which is a 1 year deal, basically saying, like, hey, your career is going in the right way. We're going to sign you to a 1 year deal, and we're probably going to sign you an extension if you keep going on this path.
mhm,
But I was still hurting in the inside. I still had baggage that I hadn't addressed. And it became ahead in my 5th year, in which one morning I got up. I had just had an anxiety attack in my sleep. I used to have anxiety attacks in my sleep a lot.
mhm,
And I just got tired. I got tired of feeling the same way each and every year. And I got tired of dealing with it. I wasn't doing therapy. I was just trying to figure it out on my own. I'm a Christian man as well, and I wasn't talking to God.
mm,
I wasn't doing any of that. The only person I was talking to was my wife, and she started to tell me like, "Hey, like I think you're dealing with anxiety." She was a nurse. She was trying to figure
okay,
it out for me, but
mhm,
she was also pregnant at the time.
mm,
So a lot of the stuff that I was dealing with, I really didn't want to put it on her because of the baby,
right,
right?
right, right,
So,
right, right, right,
one morning I just got up and I started to drive, and as I'm driving to the Seahawks facility, I started thinking about harming myself because I didn't want to feel the pain anymore. And that's a lot of us. Maybe you're listening, maybe you just don't want to feel the pain anymore. And you're not thinking about anything else. You're just thinking about the pain that you're feeling, the deep
right,
depression that you're feeling.
mhm,
And I tried to run my car off the road twice.
In that
And luckily,
commute, in that same
in
commute.
the in the commute, yes.
Wow.
This is 5th year,
Uh,
signed a deal, everything on the outside looks great,
yep.
but I was hurting on the inside. And I
Mhm.
tried to run the car off the road twice, and what stopped me the first time was my wife called me. And you guys know when you're talking to someone in the car, the Bluetooth is on. So when they call, it's gonna ring through the car.
Yep.
Usually it's loud. And so that's what kind of snapped me out of it because it was so loud to the point it frightened me. And so I ended up getting off the phone with her.
But Marcus, the moment that you're thinking about that though, she calls.
Right. Yes. So God basically gave me 2 chances,
Yep.
right? And if she hadn't been in my life at the time that she was, I would have never got that call, right?
Exactly.
And so I jerked the car back out of frustration. And then the second call was my mother-in-law, which is her mom,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
She just calling me out of nowhere, just calling to say, "Hey, what's going on with you? Are you good? Whatever." And by the time I was done talking to her, I was at the bottom of the hill and I got off the phone with her and so I was like, I can't believe what I just tried to do. I said, man, I really need some help. That was the first time in my life that I said, hey,
Okay.
I need help.
That was the wake up call right there.
That was the
The
wake up
wake up.
call.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that openness and yeah, you're freeing other people, not just yourself in that and it's a important, impactful conversation coming from your heart like that. I think that unfortunately I've heard a story like this before. The thing that you started with at the beginning of this, that those folks who look good on the outside, who are quote unquote successful based on our society's measure of what success is, got quote unquote money, you're a professional, you're quote unquote famous, that those are
Mm,
the people that really struggle inside because there's so much pressure to maintain that persona, to maintain that status, so to speak. And it's almost like this is the only way I almost have to hurt myself to not be able to compete physically and, like, do my quote, unquote "job" anymore, because that's the only way I know how to get out. It's
mm.
so right? Harming
Yep.
the vessel, which is your body, to do the thing that you do every day in and day out is such a intense, like, just so desperate place, and my heart goes out to every part of you and every part of anyone who's been through that, right? Like, thank you for
Mm.
sharing.
No problem.
I wanna get a sense of your mind at that time, your mind, the baggage, you were hurting inside, these words you say. For those who might be going through something too, who don't know that this is something that can be healed from, that can be addressed, that can be just like a physical symptom. Like, we know what it feels like maybe to have a migraine or a concussion, or we know what it feels like to strain a hammy, or like, we know what that feels like. But what would be some in your experience and talking with, you know, your community, current players, former players, your peer group, what would they want to make sure they're looking out for in themselves or their family members or their people, right? In that, yeah, anxiety, but like you said, it feels different to everybody. It looks different to everybody. For you, it woke you up in your sleep and the depression to the point you don't want to live. But what does that really feel like?
Mm. It's one of those feelings that's super, super heavy. When we say weight, it literally feels like weight. It feels like you have a weighted vest on, like you're working out.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm.
So that's
Mhm.
what it feels like. And in my experience, also, it also I wanted to be done with football. I didn't want to play anymore. And I didn't know how to tell my family that. I didn't know how to tell my coaches that. I just had to stop. I was doing what, the norm does. Oh man, I'm here. I gotta
Totally.
play.
Moving through the motions. Yep.
Right. And a lot of that from my experience with football kind of changed my perception when it came to football. And so for people who may be feeling the same thing, like if you're an athlete, by all means, I'm not telling you to be done with your sport because if I would have had the team around me,
Right. The
right,
support.
because
Mhm.
it's the
Mhm.
support, right, that
Mhm.
really
Mhm.
understood
Mhm.
mental health, I think I could have kept playing as long as I would have wanted to keep playing, right? But I had to remove myself in order to be healthy,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
And sometimes you do have to do that without any outside noise, with just you, your thoughts, your therapist, or whoever you're talking to.
Right.
You can then start to redefine who the real you is because maybe you've gotten away from the real you throughout your sport. Maybe all your time is going to your sport. Maybe everything is going towards what you see or success you're trying to reach. Obviously, we know success is not a destination. To me, it's a mindset, right?
Mhm.
It's not a
Mhm.
place that you actually go. And sometimes you do have to remove yourself in order for you to really see yourself. And that's kind of just where I was in that moment. I removed myself. I end up going home, seeing my daughter born.
Mhm.
And then once I actually got the help though, and I was able to, sometimes my wife would sit in with me, sometimes she wouldn't. It would just be me and the therapist.
Mhm.
And I was able to get everything off of my chest.
Mhm. Mhm. That
Everything.
vest. You
It-
took that vest off.
man, what it was like, man, it was like
Whoa.
the floodgates. Like one time it was something came up from when I was 8 or 9. I'm like,
Yep.
bro,
Yep.
like I
Yep.
haven't talked about that since I was 8. And I cried like
Mhm.
a baby too,
Mhm. You cried like
which
the
is
8-year-old
healthy.
boy. The 8-year-old boy that needed to
Yeah.
cry then, that couldn't. Like, oh my god.
Yeah. Have you ever felt like there was a point in my life where it was hard for me to cry for whatever reason?
For sure. For sure. For
I
sure.
I just be I was just holding back. But once I really released and I let it out, it was one of the most greatest feelings that I ever had because I felt like I hadn't cried in so long. And some of us need that.
Yep. I'm sure it was such a relief.
Man, it was. And it still is. And that's why I always say it's a journey because I do therapy once a week.
Yep. Yep. No. It's so this has been bubbling up in my heart since we started talking. Like you are opening up my heart. And so I'm going to share something that I haven't shared publicly ever.
Please.
And so like we're creating something right here. So after my second child, and they didn't diagnose it. So my husband's a therapist too. So
Mhm.
he helped me see it. I had postpartum panic attacks. We talk
Wow.
about postpartum depression. Very,
Mm,
that more so, not enough in my opinion, still, but like we don't talk about the mother who has postpartum anxiety attacks, anxiety attacks, and then panic attacks, all on a continuum of severity, right?
mm,
I would There was one night, so we had a 8-year-old daughter already, and then my son was born, and in the middle of the night, Marcus, I get up, and I feel like I have to run out in the middle of the street, like, I can't breathe.
mm.
So I run out to the middle of the street, and I'm just, like, trying to catch my breath, and my husband's like, "Babe, can you come in?" Like, "What the hell?" Because he's freaked out. The baby's right
Yeah.
there, the newborn baby. My 8-year-old daughter, thank God she doesn't know what's going on, but I can't catch my breath. He tries to bring me in, but I'm like, "We gotta open up every window. I can't be in here. Don't give me the baby," which is
Mm,
heartbreaking for him to see, I'm sure, and then, like, as a new mom of 2 now, like, I don't wanna I was scared to hold him because if I
wow.
held him and I can't breathe, would I drop him or hurt him? Like, he
Yeah.
called 911. We didn't know what it was at first, because is there something going on medically with me in my healing process
Mm,
of just delivering, right? And so it wasn't till maybe a week later, 4 or 5 days, because it kept happening even in the daytime. Like I'd be nursing him. I'm like, babe, like put a fan on me, or like I need to go out in the park and do this, or like I can't. It was so suffocating.
yeah.
And so I had a acupuncturist that helped me actually get pregnant with him. And so she came and did home visits for me. And then I did virtual therapy sessions with my therapist around this. And it took some time,
Yeah.
but that was crazy. It was so scary.
Yeah.
I know what people feel like when they have panic attacks. I've had them.
Me too. I've had them too. Yeah.
Like,
It's not a good feeling at
no,
all.
no, it's not. No, it's not. It's almost like you're trying to like climb out of a hole with like quicksand, and it's gonna come
Mhm.
all around your mouth and cover your mouth, and you can't breathe, and it's like, I can't
Yeah.
get out,
Yep.
and I can't catch a deep enough breath.
Yep.
So,
Shit.
this ain't my podcast. I'm supposed to be hosting. I'm not supposed to be. You're hosting me now, Marcus. Like,
Listen. No, but that's what we need though. We need these stories, and I think the more that we tell them, the more people can relate, the more people can identify
yes.
with your story. How many moms out there? My wife is a midwife.
Mm.
She deals with moms all the time, right?
Yep.
And so,
Yep.
how many stories could that benefit and really help? And like, oh, hold on, wait. This is what I could be looking for if I do have a child and this is happening to me. Okay, what did Lisa do? Okay, she had a therapist that she was talking to. It's those little things, man, go a long way. So I really appreciate you for sharing that, because that is something that I really truly feel that I truly feel like in my heart that is going to help somebody.
Mhm.
Anytime a story is told, it helps someone, just someone.
Yes.
We don't
Yep.
know.
Nope.
Somebody's gonna send you an email and like, you don't understand, right? And that's why you do the work. That's why you're doing the work that you're doing. So I applaud
For
you
sure.
for telling the
No,
story.
Marcus. No, Marcus. Thank you. Thank you for being all that you are. I think that our stories, especially from those of us who look good on the outside, like you were saying, this is the theme of today. Like me, a therapist of over 20 years, working with professional athletes, talking to a guy like Marcus Smith right now, can go through this. Yes, no one's
Yep.
immune. It looks different for everybody. It happens at different stages of people's lives, you know,
Yep.
and so we're human beings. And we have stress and pressure and things like that. And yeah, I want every father, every man, every woman, whether you have a baby one day or not, or like anyone, know that like we need to talk about postpartum anxiety just as much as postpartum depression. Because people are like, what? That's a thing? I mean, yeah,
Just like
kinda.
how we, just like how I said to somebody once. I want to say when I was about my third or fourth year, I'm like, anxiety. That's a thing.
Right. I just thought that that's how my mind was. I just thought that's how it
Yeah.
was.
I
Right.
didn't know that was an actual thing. Yeah.
Wow. Wow, we are sharing from our hearts. What is your take when you were still playing and maybe you didn't have your radar up for it or not?
Mhm.
What was the talk in the locker room when it comes to mental health when you were still playing? Or do
There
you
was
know?
really no,
Oh, no
there
talk.
wasn't,
Okay.
yeah, it wasn't too much talk about it,
Okay.
right? I'm not the person next to me and my locker mate. I'm not talking to him about what I'm truly dealing with,
You're not.
because
Mhm.
players sometimes think that, oh man, if I tell him this, he can use it against me on the field,
Correct. Right. Right.
right?
Right.
So it's not really being talked about as much. But what I did notice is that now they have a clinician on all 32 NFL teams,
Mhm.
right? And I think once I left and I came back to the Seahawks locker room and they found out what happened and things of that nature, a lot of them did start to talk to me more about what they were dealing with. And
Mm.
so I think that's what led me to where I am too, because I felt like there was a need in being vulnerable and talking,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I'm not a therapist. I always tell people this. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a certified life coach. I talk through experience,
Yep.
right? And I am a bridge for people. So I put you with the people that can help you. I help you get the team together, just like I got my team together,
Mhm.
right? And so I think it is a talk in the locker room now in which it wasn't like that before. The
Mhm.
only barrier that I see
Yep.
now is that, with all the 32 NFL teams, it's attached to the NFL. And so
Exactly.
guys sometimes are scared to go into the therapy room because they don't want the owner or the general manager to know that they're having some issues, right? And don't
Exactly.
want them to
Yep.
use it against them for
Yep.
whatever reason. But it's going in the right direction. And I'm trying to help guys like, look, if they're there, use them.
Yep. Yep. But that's a real concern. I think that goes
Yeah.
across a lot of leagues, a lot of professional spaces, because there's so much at stake. If someone thinks that you are struggling mentally, then you might not be an asset on the field in the way that we need you to be. And that, and then can I really trust the
You said
confidence?
that.
I said that, right? Right.
Yeah. No, that's
Right.
real. That
Right.
is real.
Right. I mean, it's a close cousin to what you said about you know, I don't want people might use it against me. The laws that we as therapists have to run our professionalism around says it's illegal for us to break confidentiality. But
Right.
but it's still not trusted, and I get it. And I get it. That's why we have so many other resources, the bridge that you cuz they're going to talk to you first before anybody like me. Because how does she really know me? But if you say "Bruh, been there," come on, there's a banter that you're gonna have and a language and a way that you speak to them, that's brother to brother.
Exactly.
And then you like you said, you make that bridge, right? It's easier for them. It's already scary to talk about what's
Yeah.
going on, even like how I feel about my day to day versus anything that might be going wrong, right? So to start that conversation with you for you to be connected to professionals and people, that's a really important model that you are facilitating. So that's amazing.
I think also that's kind of where the need is too, right?
Mhm.
And I think if we, especially as athletes, if we can continue if that's the path that, guys or girls want to get into, I think it's an awesome path to get into because you're still doing service. You have value, right? Even if you didn't necessarily like go to school for it to be a therapist. You don't have to necessarily be the therapist. You
Right.
can be in the middle, get them to the right people, and still be a ear. I would say, still be a person who listens, just to help. And I think it helps the therapist, and I think it helps the psychiatrist. So that's why I do it. I could go back to school to be a therapist, but I just, sometimes I'm like, well, it's not a lot of us, right, that look
Mhm.
like me to be a
Yep.
therapist. So I think it could be something that maybe I do in the future. But I get it warms my spirit to be able to help a person along, you know?
Yeah.
So
Someone like you could study to be a therapist or a CMPC in the sports psychology space. But me as a therapist and a CMPC, I can't study to get the lived experience that you have.
yeah,
See what I mean? We can each be members of the team of the athlete in our various expertises and areas of experience. I
yeah, I
think,
love that you said that. Yep, that's
yeah,
exactly what it is. Yep.
yeah, we can work together from where we are and like what we hold and how we are. So I think it's important. I need you. Like people
I
like
need
me.
you
Yeah, yeah.
for
So
sure.
yeah, we need each other to keep this process going of dismantling what mental health is, dismantling what it means and the oppression that it provides to people when we throw around these words. Like, yeah, don't get me going, but we need each other. And so to do this thing, tell me a little bit about what you do for All Points North. First, what is All Points North? And then what does it mean for you to be a global ambassador for them?
Yeah, so All Points North is a 30-day treatment facility for addiction and mental health.
Mhm.
I went to All Points after COVID. I was done playing in the NFL and I felt like I needed something more than just therapy, especially leaving the game of football. I went there for 30 days and it changed my life.
Mm.
It changed my
Mhm.
life for the better. It really helped me grow into the man that I am today. I got to reset and really find the real Marcus Smith
Yeah.
because that's the person that I was searching for. That's why the circle of them is called what it's called. We unmask the feelings that cause anxiety, depression, and my logo is a half helmet, half face. So I was constantly trying to figure out who I was outside of
Whoa.
the mask,
Whoa.
right? But needless to say, 2 years later, I came on as an ambassador for All Points to not only help the athletes get into treatment, but also be a ear and a voice for the players as they're coming into treatment. All
Mhm.
Points has many of NFL players that come through there, and sometimes they need a voice from the league who can help them with their experience.
Mhm.
And that's what I do with All Points. And it's honestly been rewarding to say the least. Because when they come in, they talk to me. When they leave, they talk to me. And they always have my information, contact. So I get to be with them as they continue to grow, as they continue to go on their journey. And I just feel like that's what it's all about. So All Points is definitely not just for athletes, but for all professionals is a place to, if you get to that point and you feel like you need something deeper than just the therapy session that you're doing. Maybe it's monthly, maybe it's weekly. You can go to a place that will take care of you, but also help you grow as a human being.
That's huge. So huge. Again, that bridge, that link. I can't study to have the experience that you had. I can't do that. You you lived that. You moved through that. You did that work. That's intense work. Give me one example of like what an afternoon would be in that 30-day stay for anyone who's wondering, or if there's an athlete out there who's like, maybe I need something like that. What's an afternoon like there in that 30-day stay?
Oh, yeah. So I can explain to you maybe let's go for like just a regular day,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Especially as an athlete, right? Sometimes when you get out of the game, our schedules were built for us, especially as an athlete, which
That's
is
right.
kind of,
Yeah,
it's good and bad, I feel like, right?
for
Because
sure.
once you don't have the schedule, you want to get back on that schedule, right?
And
And that's
sometimes you
one of
don't know how to make a schedule because no one's told,
exactly.
right? It's always given to you. So how do I do the schedule? What's my routine? When do I eat what? When do I work out? When do I sleep?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think one of the things that APN does that's really good is they build out a schedule for you to kind of like bring you back to that locker room, that
Mhm.
sport type of feel, right? But just for
Mhm.
all professionals. And
Mhm.
you do
Mhm.
what you do process group in the morning, right? So usually if there is a lot of athletes, we'll do process group together and we'll
Okay.
be able to basically have a conversation about those things that we're suffering with, but we're kind of suffering with them together and get to hear different people's perspectives. So you can see that you're not the only one, right? You're not alone and you're not by yourself.
And that's
Right.
healing right there to be able to be in that,
And
right?
it is healing. It is healing. But then they
Mhm.
also do things, and you said the evening, they also do things like doing process group with other professionals, right?
Mm.
Learning different traits, learning different schemas that like basically who you are as a person. And they have music group, right? Being able to go into like a music lab and understanding different genres of music of different people,
Mm.
right? And why people like things the way that they like them, right? Because you may not understand why you like a certain thing, but someone else teaching why they like it, you might start understanding. Okay, maybe that's why I like it as well. So they have a different
Wow.
variety of of things that can help you in that while you're there, right? So you're doing therapy all day until I want to say like 4 o'clock, but you're going into different sessions with different people that may not look like you, right? All different types of walk of life.
Yep.
But
Yep.
it really brings it home for the athlete because now it takes you out of that bubble
Yeah.
that we've
Yeah.
been in.
Yep. Yep.
And it puts you into the society and you get to see that, man, I was a football player and I was dealing with that. But this person, this doctor or this lawyer or this dentist was dealing with that as well. Right. And you really feel like you're not by yourself. And they get to see that from the athlete perspective as well.
Right. Right. That
So
you're all
that's kind
human
of,
beings. It's awesome. Yeah. Yep.
I mean, I
That
could go through like the whole week, but you also they take you like after a certain amount of days, they have someone to take you off site too.
Mhm.
So it may, maybe bowling, it may be they
Mhm.
had horsing on there to go to see certain horses and things of that
Mm.
nature.
Mhm.
Which is great because now you've done the work and at the tail end of maybe your stay there, they take you off site so you could get air, so you can really see things for what they are, right? Because when you leave, at the end of the day, you don't want to have to come back. You want to take those tools
For
that you
sure.
learn,
For sure.
put
For
those
sure.
tools in your toolbox and use them.
I love it. I love it. One day we will talk about the whole week and all 30 days, just not right now, because I think,
Yeah.
residential work like that is so intense and meaningful. I mean, basically, with your Circle of M logo, you're trying to navigate that transition away from football and try to find, who am I? Right? That
Yep.
is something that also leads to really severe depression and suicidal thoughts and ideas for athletes at all levels, not knowing who you are besides your sport. And that internal, like, almost sort of life-changing dilemma of like, dang it, now what?
Yeah.
But, like, you go there, right? You're learning about yourself through music, you're asking questions, you're being curious, you're developing yourself with all the support around you, and then you're, like, reintegrating back into the community by going out and doing stuff and like, "Hey, here's an opportunity for practice that thing that I, like, was learning last week or earlier today. Let me see if I can try to practice it," knowing that you're gonna be out there again in life doing the thing as best you can with these new tools, and that integration continues for a while, so
Mhm.
that is so, and we did not say either that, like, the lodge where you were is a beautiful setting. There's so many
Oh yeah.
resources there. I mean, like, there's that too.
It's in the mountains
It's in the
and it's
mountains
beautiful.
in
It's
Colorado,
beautiful.
people. It's yeah, you can't not heal in that environment.
Yep.
It is just so cool. Tell me a little bit more about Circle of M. People need to know what you're doing. Tell me more about that and how it was birthed.
Yeah, so the Circle of M was started back in 2020. Obviously, I went to All Points in 2022 where I developed most of it there, right? Time by myself,
Mm.
being
Mhm.
able to really, like I said, find who I was. And I wanted to help athletes. That was the main thing at first. So I started off with awareness. So I was on so many different platforms talking about my story, just speaking to what mental health was. And then
Yep.
obviously, as you start to do more awareness, you realize, okay, I'm doing awareness, but where are the solutions? And
Yep.
so 2 years later, after I leave APN, that's where APN comes into play. And I know that they're a solution, right?
Mhm.
They are a
Mhm.
solution
Mhm.
to what a lot of these
Mhm.
athletes are dealing with. So the Circle of them, I'm their global ambassador, but the Circle of them partners with APN to help these athletes, but then also we've created like a healing circle. It's almost I stay with them through my nonprofit to kind of help them along as they go through and then once they leave. So I'm still talking to them always, and I have a team that helps them as well. And after that, the last part of it was so there was awareness and then you create solutions, right?
Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
then the third part is facility and having to do with the youth. So what we've done now is we
Mm.
partner with us because I have a facility here in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. It's like a 5,000 square foot facility. We have recreations and weights, and we train athletes. We do all those things, but we know that mental health starts with the youth.
Yes.
And so we've partnered with Maryland Park and Planning to be able to serve kids from 8 to 18, and we do a program for them every Wednesday. And serving them basic knowledge of mental health, right? Things that, doing the feelings wheel with them, just
Yeah, the
helping
feelings
them
will.
understand, right? Just
Mhm.
helping them understand what it means. And like, if your teacher is asking what's wrong with you, instead of you saying, man, I don't know, you
Right.
could tell her, like, you know what? I remember what I seen on the feelings wheel. I'm going to tell, I'm not, what's one of the words on the feelings wheel?
Sad.
I'm sad, angry, I'm distressed or feeling stressed, right? Just
Overwhelmed or yeah.
overwhelmed. Yeah.
Mhm.
Just little stuff like that. And bringing other, clinicians in to have those conversations with them, right? So they can see clinicians and what they look like and that
Yeah.
they're just people that can help you, not
Yep.
people that are, you're not going to be in a straitjacket if you go
Right.
to a therapist, right? And so that's what the Circle of M is all about. We are in the process of changing the logo.
Oh, okay.
We're going a little bit more corporate, but
Okay.
I am gonna keep. I'm gonna keep the half helmet, half face for the athlete part of it. But we are in a process of changing the logo. So yeah, that's the Circle of M.
Got
In
it.
a
Got it.
nutshell, you could visit the Circle of M on the circleofm.com just so you could see what we're all about.
I'd love to. I'd love to. And anyone listening should also do the same. I mean, you're living in your purpose and it's obvious, like you're doing what fills your heart, what also fills others' hearts. And then that vibe and energy is contagious. You know, that's why I opened up. I've never done that, Marcus, on a podcast
Oh
that I
wow,
host. On a podcast that I host, I've never done that.
wow,
And so,
yeah, that's amazing. That's great.
yeah,
I love it.
yeah,
We're gonna be walking around free today. Hey,
yeah,
come
yeah,
on.
we are free and loose, free and loose. No, it's just great. It's great to be around people like you, the energy, the openness, the humility, the just downright, just down to earth type person. And I've appreciated our time together. I'm excited to get this talk out into the world. It's going to change lives. And I just can't appreciate you enough for just the person that you are and are becoming and the future of who you are and how, I mean, it's more, you're transforming right now. The transformation continues. New logo, new
Yes,
messages,
thank you. Yes, ma'am.
so I'm just
Yeah.
like, just so appreciate you a lot.
Oh, I appreciate you for having me. This has been fun. Anytime I get the opportunity to talk, I don't take it for granted at all. So I am extremely grateful for this conversation.
This podcast exists because of the team at CAS-CM. CAS-CM is a B2B content production company helping organizations create and share their stories. We aim to create space where businesses can build assets and drive revenue through writing and talking. Content creation should be enjoyable and accessible. At CAS-CM, we love helping make that happen. Learn more at cascm.com.